So what are the chances for immigration reform here in the United States? We were joined earlier by Alex Nowrasteh. He's an immigration policy analyst with the Cato Institute's Center for Global Liberty and Prosperity.
Clearly, I think that the major portion of this crisis has passed. I mean, if you recall, a lot of people were saying that by the end of September, there would be 90,000 apprehensions along the southwest border. By the end of September, it's likely to be fewer than 70,000.
What issues do children present in terms of illegal immigrants coming into the country? It's far different than an adult coming across in many respects. I mean, you think about education as one component of all of this.
Education, but also just in the way that the immigration system treats these kids coming across. There are extra processes in place in the government to make sure that these kids are not, if they're fleeing violence, if they're fleeing abuse, if they're fleeing torture, or other such things, that they can make an asylum claim much easier than an adult can.
I've heard you say that the situation here is flawed. You mentioned there's like 3,000 pages, I think, to the immigration law. What do you think needs to happen?
I think the fundamental thing is we need to make it easier for a lot of these people to come here lawfully in the first place, so that instead of coming across the border and surrendering to a border patrol agent, they can get on a plane or a bus and come here instead of hiring human smugglers and human traffickers. That, I think, is the key problem with our current immigration mess right now. But
it seems as though this is something that's talked about almost every year. I mean, you're here in Washington, you see it, but there's very little traction. Why is that? And is there a chance that there might be really meaningful immigration reform? Everybody keeps saying those three words together, but we don't really see it.
Well, 2013 looked like the magical year, right? You had Republicans coming out like Marco Rubio supporting reform after the 2012 election. You had Democrats and the president saying they supported reform. It seemed like all the stars had aligned, and it did pass the Senate, but it stalled in the House. And I don't think that we're going to see the stars align like that anytime in the near future. Now, I think immigration reform definitely will happen. It has to happen in the United States for a whole host of reasons, but I think it's unlikely to happen in the last 2 years of the president's administration.
It's interesting you say it has to happen, but it doesn't happen, and I'm wondering why is that? You know, if everyone recognizes there's a problem, you think that both sides could come together and come up with some sort of solution. What is the problem?
The problem basically is that there's too much government involvement in immigration. There's too much government control and too many restrictions on who can come to this country. I mean, there is no green card available right now for a low-skilled immigrant who doesn't have family in this country, which is a far different situation than when our ancestors came in through Ellis Island. So the best way that we can fix this problem going forward is to liberalize immigration, especially for low-skilled workers.
That was Alex Nowrasteh.